relationships across the world in this chapter and beyond.
For every beginning, there is a place to live, a place to grow, a place to move to, and a place to move you. Today, you're taking the first step to that place. A place which connects you to the Middle East and Russia without ever leaving the European Union. A place of great connections where the internet is amongst the 10 fastest in the world. Everything moves fast in this place. A booming economy with low operating costs and a corporate tax of just 10%. A smart place with smart people. People who top the global charts in mathematics and rank 3rd in the world in IT specialists per capita. People who communicate with the world. 1 in 2 speaks at least 1 foreign language. This place is a vibrant global software development hub, an industry growing by 30% year on year. The automotive sector is also driving in the fast lane, helping 90% of the European cars move. And there's more. More electrical manufacturing, more mechatronics, more mechanical engineering, electronics, innovations. More is moving forward in this place. Until it pauses. Just for a moment. And then you dive into 14 centuries of cultural heritage. You are dazzled by the stunning natural beauty and never get tired of its diversity throughout its 4 seasons. You fall in love with this place of abundance where half of the land is arable, fertile, clean, and rich in mineral water. So move forward and be moved by Bulgaria. Take the first step and let us welcome you with strong institutional support and attractive business incentives. Invest in Bulgaria. Move to be moved.
The 3 Seas Initiative connects countries from the Baltic, Black, and Adriatic Seas. We build a community. We stay connected. We grow relationships and networks. We develop real investment opportunities. Use the 3 Seas Investment Fund to secure capital for your energy, digital, and transport infrastructure project by connecting with engaged investors. BDB 2021 Conference in Sofia, the meeting point for leaders and visionaries mapping out tomorrow's infrastructure.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. Since Churchill made that speech, the world has changed dramatically, especially here between the Baltic, the Adriatic, and also the Black Sea, where a new partnership has descended known as the 3 Seas Initiative. The 3 Seas is made up of diverse EU member states. Their stories are unique, but they all have one chapter in common. For half a century, they were closed off from the rest of Europe by the Iron Curtain. We can still see the effect of that today. While Western European nations are deeply intertwined through energy and transport links, the nations of the 3 Seas remain relatively disconnected from each other. But we are now writing a new chapter together in which millions will benefit from new investments and smarter connectivity. In fact, the 3 Seas region has already become a driving force for economic growth in Europe, outperforming the EU average by 67% over recent years. To turbocharge that growth, the 3 Seas is now combining its political will and economic might to significantly improve its energy, transport, and digital infrastructure. Their focus is on smart connectivity to create new opportunities for future innovations. That includes improving data exchange to make more efficient use of information. By taking decisive action now, the 3 Cs will continue to drive economic growth in Europe and strengthen both our competitiveness and our relationships across the world in this chapter and beyond.
For every beginning, there is a place to live, a place to grow, a place to move to, and a place to move you. Today, you're taking the first step to that place. A place which connects you to the Middle East and Russia without ever leaving the European Union. A place of great connections where the internet is amongst the 10 fastest in the world. Everything moves fast in this place. A booming economy with low operating costs and a corporate tax of just 10%. A smart place with smart people. People who top the global charts in mathematics and rank 3rd in the world in IT specialists per capita. People who communicate with the world. 1 in 2 speaks at least 1 foreign language. This place is a vibrant global software development hub, an industry growing by 30% year on year. The automotive sector is also driving in the fast lane, helping 90% of the European cars move. And there's more. More electrical manufacturing, more mechatronics, more mechanical engineering, electronics, innovations. More is moving forward in this place. Until it pauses. Just for a moment. And then you dive into 14 centuries of cultural heritage. You are dazzled by the stunning natural beauty and never get tired of its diversity throughout its 4 seasons. You fall in love with this place of abundance, where half of the land is arable, fertile, clean, and rich in mineral water. So move forward and be moved by Bulgaria. Take the first step and let us welcome you with strong institutional support and attractive business incentives. Invest in Bulgaria. Move to be moved.
The 3 Cs initiative connects countries from the Baltic, Black, and Adriatic Seas. We build a community. We stay connected. We grow relationships and networks. We develop real investment opportunities. Use the 3 Cs Investment Fund to secure capital for your energy, digital, and transport infrastructure project by connecting with engaged investors. BDB 2021 Conference in Sofia, the meeting point for leaders and visionaries mapping out tomorrow's infrastructure.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. Since Churchill made that speech, the world has changed dramatically, especially here between the Baltic, the Adriatic, and also the Black Sea, where a new partnership has descended known as the 3 Cs Initiative. The 3 Cs is made up of diverse EU member states. Their stories are unique, but they all have one chapter in common. For half a century, they were closed off from the rest of Europe by the Iron Curtain. We can still see the effect of that today. While Western European nations are deeply intertwined through energy and transport links, the nations of the 3 Cs remain relatively disconnected from each other. But we are now writing a new chapter together in which millions will benefit from new investments and smarter connectivity. In fact, the 3 Cs region has already become a driving force for economic growth in Europe, outperforming the EU average by 67% over recent years. To turbocharge that growth, the 3 Cs is now combining its political will and economic might to significantly improve its energy, transport, and digital infrastructure. Their focus is on smart connectivity to create new opportunities for future innovations. That includes improving data exchange to make more efficient use of information. By taking decisive action now, the 3 Cs will continue to drive economic growth in Europe and strengthen both our competitiveness and our relationships across the world in this chapter and beyond.
For every beginning, there is a place to live, a place to grow, a place to move to, and a place to move you. Today, you're taking the first step to that place. A place which connects you to the Middle East and Russia without ever leaving the European Union. A place of great connections where the internet is amongst the 10 fastest in the world. Everything moves fast in this place. A booming economy with low operating costs and a corporate tax of just 10%. A smart place with smart people. People who top the global charts in mathematics and rank 3rd in the world in IT specialists per capita. People who communicate with the world. 1 in 2 speaks at least 1 foreign language. This place is a vibrant global software development hub, an industry growing by 30% year on year. The automotive sector is also driving in the fast lane, helping 90% of the European cars move. And there's more. More electrical manufacturing, more mechatronics, more mechanical engineering, electronics, innovations. More is moving forward in this place. Until it pauses. Just for a moment. And then you dive into 14 centuries of cultural heritage. You are dazzled by the stunning natural beauty and never get tired of its diversity throughout its 4 seasons. You fall in love with this place of abundance, where half of the land is arable, fertile, clean, and rich in mineral water. So move forward and be moved by Bulgaria. Take the first step and let us welcome you with strong institutional support and attractive business incentives. Invest in Bulgaria. Move to be moved.
The 3 Cs initiative connects countries from the Baltic, Black, and Adriatic Seas. We build a community. We stay connected. We grow relationships and networks. We develop real investment opportunities. Use the 3 Cs Investment Fund to secure capital for your energy, digital, and transport infrastructure project by connecting with engaged investors. BDB 2021 Conference in Sofia, the meeting point for leaders and visionaries mapping out tomorrow's infrastructure.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. Since Churchill made that speech, the world has changed dramatically, especially here between the Baltic, the Adriatic, and also the Black Sea, where a new partnership has descended known as the 3 Cs Initiative. The 3 Cs is made up of diverse EU member states. Their stories are unique, but they all have one chapter in common. For half a century, they were closed off from the rest of Europe by the Iron Curtain. We can still see the effect of that today. While Western European nations are deeply intertwined through energy and transport links, the nations of the 3 Cs remain relatively disconnected from each other. But we are now writing a new chapter together in which millions will benefit from new investments and smarter connectivity. In fact, the Three Seas region has already become a driving force for economic growth in Europe, outperforming the EU average by 67% over recent years. To turbocharge that growth, the Three Seas is now combining its political will and economic might to significantly improve its energy, transport, and digital infrastructure. Their focus is on smart connectivity to create new opportunities for future innovations. That includes improving data exchange to make more efficient use of information. By taking decisive action now, the Three Seas will continue to drive economic growth in Europe and strengthen both our competitiveness and our relationships across the world in this chapter and beyond.
For every beginning, there is a place to live, a place to grow, a place to move to, and a place to move you. Today, you're taking the first step to that place. A place which connects you to the Middle East and Russia without ever leaving the European Union. A place of great connections where the internet is amongst the 10 fastest in the world. Everything moves fast in this place. A booming economy with low operating costs and a corporate tax of just 10%. A smart place with smart people. People who top the global charts in mathematics and rank third in the world in IT specialists per capita. People who communicate with the world. 1 in 2 speaks at least 1 foreign language. This place is a vibrant global software development hub, an industry growing by 30% year on year. The automotive sector is also driving in the fast lane, helping 90% of the European cars move. And there's more. More electrical manufacturing, more mechatronics, more mechanical engineering, electronics, innovations. More is moving forward in this place. Until it pauses. Just for a moment. And then you dive into 14 centuries of cultural heritage. You are dazzled by the stunning natural beauty and never get tired of its diversity throughout its 4 seasons. You fall in love with this place of abundance where half of the land is arable, fertile, clean, and rich in mineral water. So move forward and be moved by Bulgaria. Take the first step and let us welcome you with strong institutional support and attractive business incentives. Invest in Bulgaria. Move to be moved.
The Three Seas Initiative connects countries from the Baltic, Black, and Adriatic Seas. We build a community. We stay connected. We grow relationships and networks. We develop real investment opportunities. Use the Three Seas Investment Fund to secure capital for your energy, digital, and transport infrastructure project by connecting with engaged investors. BDB 2021 Conference in Sofia, the meeting point for leaders and visionaries mapping out tomorrow's infrastructure.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. Since Churchill made that speech, the world has changed dramatically, especially here between the Baltic, the Adriatic, and also the Black Sea, where a new partnership has descended known as the Three Seas Initiative. The Three Seas is made up of diverse EU member states. Their stories are unique, but they all have one chapter in common. For half a century, they were closed off from the rest of Europe by the Iron Curtain. We can still see the effect of that today. While Western European nations are deeply intertwined through energy and transport links, the nations of the three seas remain relatively disconnected from each other. But we are now writing a new chapter together in which millions will benefit from new investments and smarter connectivity. In fact, the Three Seas region has already become a driving force for economic growth in Europe, outperforming the EU average by 67% over recent years. To turbocharge that growth, the Three Seas is now combining its political will and economic might to significantly improve its energy, transport, and digital infrastructure. Their focus is on smart connectivity to create new opportunities for future innovations. That includes improving data exchange to make more efficient use of information. By taking decisive action now, the Three Seas will continue to drive economic growth in Europe and strengthen both our competitiveness and our relationships across the world in this chapter and beyond.
For every beginning, there is a place to live, a place to grow, a place to move to, and a place to move you. Today, you're taking the first step to that place. A place which connects you to the Middle East and Russia without ever leaving the European Union. A place of great connections where the internet is amongst the 10 fastest in the world. Everything moves fast in this place. A booming economy with low operating costs and a corporate tax of just 10%. A smart place with smart people. People who top the global charts in mathematics and rank third in the world in IT specialists per capita. People who communicate with the world. 1 in 2 speaks at least one foreign language. This place is a vibrant global software development hub, an industry growing by 30% year on year. The automotive sector is also driving in the fast lane, helping 90% of the European cars move. And there's more. More electrical manufacturing, more mechatronics, more mechanical engineering.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, I beg for your attention, sorry. We are running a little bit late, so please, I'm begging your attention. My name is Costadin Sirleștov. Welcome to the energy panel of the Sofia Three Seas Initiative Summit. Without any further ado, let me just introduce our first keynote speaker, Minister Andrei Zhivkov, Minister of Energy of the Republic of Bulgaria. Mr. Zhivkov.
Ваши превъзходителства, уважаеми дами и господа участници, имам удоволствието да ви приветствам при откриването на панел енергетика на бизнес форума, организиран в рамките на българското домакинство на инициативата Трите морета.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, it's a great pleasure to bid you welcome to the opening of the energy panel of this business forum organized within the Three Seas initiative hosted by Bulgaria.
Създадената вече традиция в провеждането на бизнес форуми демонстрира трансформацията на инициативата от предимно политическа в активна икономическа такава. Участието на представители на толкова значими компании от енергийния сектор е безспорно доказателство за правилната насока, в която се развива инициативата.
The already established tradition in such business forums demonstrates the transformation of the initiative from mainly political into an active economic platform. The involvement of representatives of such significant companies from the energy sector is an undoubted proof of the right direction the initiative is following.
Основна задача на правителствата в региона е да създадат привлекателен инвестиционен и бизнес климат, основан на принципите на свободния пазар, прозрачността и конкурентоспособността. Вярваме, че е особено важно да се стимулира индустриалното сътрудничество и директните контакти между бизнес кръговете на страните от инициативата в областта на иновациите, новите технологии и научните изследвания.
The main task of the governments in the region is to establish an attractive investment and business climate based on the principles of the free market, transparency, and competitiveness. We believe that it is particularly important to encourage industrial cooperation and direct contacts between the business circles of the initiative member states in the sphere of innovations, new technologies, and research.
Значителното подобряване на инфраструктурните връзки в региона на страните от инициативата Три морета, включително и в енергийния сектор, е необходимо условие за задълбочаване на икономическото сътрудничество между тях. Синергията при развитието на различните видове инфраструктура има дългосрочни ефекти, като създаване на нови вериги на доставки, нови работни места и по-тясна интеграция на икономиките на нашите общества.
The considerable improvement of the infrastructure connections in the regions of the 3Cs initiative member states, including in the energy sector, is a necessary prerequisite for deepening the economic cooperation among them. Synergy in the development of various infrastructure types has long-term effects, such as establishment of new chains of supplies, new jobs, and closer integration of our economies and our societies.
Считам, че енергийното сътрудничество като част от инициативата може да бъде разглеждано като модел за сътрудничество и в други области. Преди повече от десетилетия страните в региона осъзнаха, че ограничените енергийни инфраструктурни връзки между тях намаляват тяхната сигурност и конкурентоспособност. Добър пример за това е развитието на газовата инфраструктура, включително изграждането на междусистемни връзки и терминали за втечнен газ, чрез което регионът вече разполага с достъп до различни източници и маршрути на доставки за природен газ.
I believe that energy cooperation as a part of the initiative can be considered as a model of cooperation in other spheres as well. More than a decade ago, the countries in the region realized that the limited energy infrastructure connections among them decreased their security and competitiveness. A good example of that is the development of the gas infrastructure, including the construction of interconnectors and LNG terminals, by which the region already has access to different and various sources and routes of natural gas supplies.
В същото време на хоризонта се появяват нови предизвикателства. Зелената сделка поставя основата за планиране на дългосрочно развитие на Европейския съюз по пътя към икономика с нулеви нива на емисии до 2050 година с междинна цел за намаляване на емисиите на парникови газове от най-малко 55% до 2030 година.
At the same time, new challenges appear on the horizon. The Green Deal set the basis for long-term development planning of the European Union towards an economy having zero levels of emissions by 2050, with an intermediate goal for decreasing of greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by 2030.
Амбициозната политика на Европейския съюз в областта на климата поставя сериозни предизвикателства и задачи пред страните от Централна и Източна Европа, които трудно биха били преодолими без общи усилия.
And the ambitious policy of the European Union in the sphere of climate sets serious challenges and tasks to the countries from Central and Eastern Europe, which would be difficult to overcome without common efforts.
Предвид факта, че над 75% от въглеродните емисии в Европейския съюз са резултат от производството и потреблението на енергия, енергийният сектор се очаква да има ключова роля в прехода към безвъглеродна икономика, като се трансформира в по-чист, по-сигурен, конкурентен, гъвкав и достъпен.
Given the fact that over 75% of carbon emissions in the European Union result from energy generation and consumption, the energy sector is expected to have a key role in the transition towards a carbon-free economy and to be transformed into a sector that is cleaner, more secure, more competitive, more flexible and accessible.
Инициативата Три морета има потенциал да изиграе важна роля в този процес чрез допълване на европейските инструменти за регионално сътрудничество и подобряване на енергийната свързаност.
The Three Seas initiative has the potential to play an important role in this process by supplementing the European instruments for regional cooperation and improving the energy connectivity.
Виждането, което споделяме, е, че идеалната, надеждна и безвъглеродна енергийна система на бъдещето включва възобновяеми енергийни източници, базови мощности и съоръжения за съхраняване на енергия.
And the view that we share is that the perfect, reliable and carbon-free energy system of the future should include renewables, baseload capacities and energy storage facilities.
Все още ограниченият напредък по развитието на системите за съхранение на енергия налага възприемането на по-гъвкав подход по отношение на определянето на енергийния микс в средносрочен план.
And the still limited progress in the development of the storage systems for energy necessitates the adoption of a more flexible approach in determining the energy mix in the midterm.
Реалистичният път към устойчива безвъглеродна икономика включва максимално повишаване на енергийната ефективност, развитие на възобновяеми енергийни източници, ядрена енергетика като базова мощност, както и използване на природния газ като преходно гориво и гориво за балансиране.
The realistic way to a sustainable carbon-free economy includes maximum improving of energy efficiency, development of renewables and nuclear power as a basic capacity, as well as use of natural gas as a transition fuel and a fuel for balancing purposes.
Освен това, за целите на по-широко мащабно въвеждане на безопасен и нисковъглероден водород, ще бъде необходимо изграждане на нова и адаптиране на съществуващата газова инфраструктура.
And besides, for the purposes of a large-scale introducing of safe and low-carbon hydrogen, it will be necessary to construct a new infrastructure and to adapt the existing gas infrastructure.
Постигането на европейските цели в областта на климата изисква адекватно подпомагане от европейските механизми и възможност за достъп до финансови инструменти за реализиране на прехода.
And the achievement of the European goals in the sphere of climate requires adequate support by the European mechanisms and a possibility for access to financial instruments so that this transition comes true.
Инвестиционният фонд Три морета, който е икономическото измерение на инициативата и финансов механизъм за реализирането на енергийни проекти в региона, може да се разглежда като инструмент, който да допълва тези европейски механизми.
And the Three Seas Investment Fund, which is the economic expression of the initiative and a financial mechanism for the implementation of energy projects in the region, can be considered as an instrument that supplements these European mechanisms.
Съвместните регионални енергийни проекти в областта на възобновяемите енергийни източници, ядрената енергетика, природния газ, водорода и други декарбонизирани газове ще бъдат практически израз на сътрудничеството между страните от инициативата, което да допринесе за техния икономически растеж и енергийна сигурност.
And the joint regional energy projects in the sphere of renewables, nuclear power, natural gas, hydrogen, and other decarbonized gases, in fact, will be an expression of cooperation between the countries from the initiative, and that will contribute for their economic growth and energy security.
Уверен съм, че предстоящата дискусия ще донесе нови идеи за функциониране на инициативата и задълбочаване на сътрудничеството помежду ни. а бизнес форумът ще създаде ползотворни контакти, които да прераснат в реални бъдещи съвместни бизнес начинания.
I'm confident that the forthcoming discussion will bring new ideas for the functioning of this initiative and for deepening of the cooperation between us. And this business forum will create fruitful contacts that may grow into real future joint business undertakings.
Благодаря ви за вниманието.
Thank you for your attention.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, today we are privileged to have a special guest with us, the Minister of Exports of the UK, Mr. Graham Stewart. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Kostadin, and welcome, everybody. I'm delighted to be here in Sofia leading the UK delegation to the 3Cs Initiative Business Forum, and very much enjoyed my ability to interact with ministers like Your Excellency and others here today. And on behalf of the UK government, I want to state that we support your partnership's ambitions to boost regional prosperity, enhance energy resilience, and deliver high-quality digital and indeed transport infrastructure. Because we know that a prosperous and secure Europe is in the UK's national interest, and we support the Bulgarian presidency's prioritisation of good governance and a greener economy. And of course, as I hope by now you all know, in November we will host world leaders in Glasgow for the COP26 summit. COP26 will offer the chance to create economies capable of reaching net zero. If that chance is taken, then the long-term benefits will be more than environmental. The International Renewable Energy Agency estimates that an accelerated transition to green energy could bring global gains of almost $100 trillion by 2050. Similarly, energy transition can create almost three times as many jobs as fossil fuels for every $1 million of investment spending. The UK has reduced its emissions by more than any other major economy in the world since 1990. But we've also significantly grown our economy, breaking that link between a cut in emissions and that having a negative impact on GDP. So British businesses are ready to partner in delivering a green recovery and local jobs. They have a wealth of experience and expertise in clean energy infrastructure, and they offer a wide range of services, from regulatory advice and sustainable investment planning to green procurement and environmental impact assessments. And I'm pleased that British innovators like Mott MacDonald, Bechtel, DWF, Linklaters and Shell have joined me here in Sofia. Our government is determined to support businesses to export their clean solutions. So our credit agency, UK Export Finance, has a significant risk appetite for markets right across the 3Cs region, including £4.5 billion, so 5 billion euros for Bulgaria alone. UKEF can release significant finance for infrastructure and clean energy projects with low UK content requirements. The UK government will back our businesses to support this initiative. By working together, we can build back better, deliver clean growth and jobs of the future across the whole 3Cs region, helping the environment and people and prosperity alike. Thank you very much. I'm going to head out.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. And it is my great pleasure now to introduce Mr. Piotr Naimski, Secretary of State for Strategic Energy Infrastructure of Republic of Poland and great friend of the initiative.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me to this panel. It's a great honor to take part in this discussion in Sofia. I'll try to focus briefly on 3 points I think are really important. First, of course, we have ambitious climate targets. This is probably the most important factor if we are talking about energy today. But those targets are very demanding. And there are different conditions, circumstances in our countries when we approve these targets or net zero emission economy in the foreseeable future. First, there are differences in available technologies. Not only because of climate, more sun on the south, more wind on the north, but also because of costs of new technologies and our resources. Second is different starting point or different starting points. We have really different situation in Greece, different situation in Scandinavia, and a different situation in Poland. In Poland, basically, we are starting from the 0 point. If we are talking about net zero targets, we have 80% of the generation, energy generation based on coal, and we have to phase out. It's already decided. But it needs time, it needs resources, it needs technologies, and it needs special approach. And the third is scale of challenges, which is connected with the second one. Because in Poland, we have really replaced what we inherited 30 years ago with a completely new structure of energy sector. It will really need, first, big efforts, will, but also enormous amount of money and a long time. The second I would like to focus on is that there is no, there is not possible to solve these problems on the way without really important breaking points on breakthroughs in the new technologies. Let me just remind the problem of mass effective energy storage or storages. Once we are able to solve this problem on the cost which is reasonable, we'll find a way to phase out almost everything which is not renewable. But we don't have it now. And we need base load energy capacity just to balance this what we are doing on the renewable side. Means that we have to rely on non-emission base load energy generation, which is nuclear. And this is why in many places in Europe, but also out of Europe, there is a new thinking about nuclear energy. There are plans, specific projects in Netherlands, in Britain, also in Poland, in Czech Republic, in Hungary. Okay, they are our friendly countries which are not going to rely on renewables. But this leads us to another point. Our governments are responsible for security of energy supplies. Point. So it is up to the governments to decide what the best ways are chosen to achieve these targets or these goals. Of course, we are in agreement on the basis that we want to have net zero. But how to achieve it, it could be different. So let's those countries who are not willing to have nuclear, they are expecting balancing of renewable energies somewhere else, probably abroad. But in my country, in Poland, we would like to save the possibility to generate enough energy in the country to stay safe. And this is why we are going for 20 years nuclear program in Poland. It will not be, I mean, better to say, it will be more difficult to achieve these goals connected with nuclear if we are going to agree that nuclear is not sustainable generation of energy. It is. This is non-emission. Of course, it needs to be treated very carefully. It needs safety. It needs proper regulations and so on. But anyway, if we are agree to exclude nuclear from EU taxonomy, we'll be in trouble. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. I would like to invite to the podium now Mr. Andrew Light, the Senior Advisor to the Secretary of Energy for International Affairs from the United States of America.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here today. This is my first trip anywhere in a year and a half. It's really great to get out of the house after a year and a half. It's wonderful to share the stage with colleagues from Bulgaria, Poland, and the UK. I want to express my thanks to the government of Bulgaria for hosting us, as well as the American Chamber of Commerce, and all of you who worked so hard the last many years to set up the 3Cs initiative. On behalf of the US government and on behalf of the US delegation here, my colleague Kurt Donnelly, who's on the stage with us from the Department of State, I want to share just a few things that we're doing that we think is very exciting on the domestic frontier in the United States, but also internationally to work with the countries in this region. I think that there's absolutely no greater challenge confronting the world today than climate change. There's also no greater opportunity than the response that we can make to climate change. Now, Minister Stewart mentioned a study from the IAEA that estimates $100 trillion in potential investment by 2050. The International Finance Corporation has another study examining just the pledges from the top dozen developing countries under the Paris Agreement from 2015 and estimates that to achieve those targets, that's $23 trillion in investment. We are facing the biggest job creator on the planet in history. It will create more jobs for our generation, for our children and our grandchildren if we do this right. And the way we have to do it right is commit ourselves to the net zero transition which is needed to meet our temperature stabilization goals. And we can absolutely do this. And energy is absolutely at the center of it. The climate conversation and the energy conversation are one conversation. There is absolutely no serious conversation about climate change that doesn't involve energy. There is no rational conversation about energy that doesn't involve climate change. So these are one that we're working on today. The Biden administration is completely committed to this proposition. You can see it in President Biden's American Jobs Plan, where if we are able to move that forward, we will see a new boom in the United States in electric vehicle chargers, in investment in highways, in investment in disadvantaged communities, thousands of more school buses running on electricity, transit programs and upgrades to the economy throughout. We would see, for example, in the plan, 15 new demonstration projects in hydrogen, which we all are looking at very seriously. 10 new projects in CCS for industrial decarbonization in steel, cement, and chemicals. And on and on and on. At the Department of Energy, where I work, we're now announcing a series of Earth shots, similar to the moon shots from generations ago that got us to the moon. We need an investment in the planet Earth today. It's an investment in energy. Secretary Granholm just announced the first one this past June on hydrogen, which is committed to producing $1 US dollar per kilogram of hydrogen by the end of the decade. And we will achieve that. This will be a production nexus that we also will need a demand pull from, again, in those heavy industries, in electricity production, in transportation, and it goes on. Now, why talk about what we're doing in the United States? Because I think it is the opportunity for what we can do with this region. We see that we share common energy security goals. We're NATO members. We work with all of you. We see a pathway here to making sure that power is no longer used as a political weapon in this region where it has unfortunately been used before. We want to increase trade opportunities throughout the 3Cs parties. In your plans and your programs, like the one that Minister Naimski just outlined in nuclear power, we see an abundance of opportunities for cooperation. And we see it in the innovation that we need to do to create the technologies of the future, which are being the only way that we finish that last mile to net zero emissions by 2050. We're doing this internationally. Climate change and clean energy cooperation is now, by order of the President, at the center of US foreign policy. So that is what you can expect from this administration in terms of how we will work with you. You can see this in the Department of Energy, where we've pledged, and we announced it at President Biden's Climate Summit in April, that we will host next year's joint clean energy ministerial and ministerial meeting of mission innovation. We're investing in new shipping innovation missions. We're investing in new missions in hydrogen, and we will announce at the COP in Glasgow in November a new mission on carbon sequestration, along with Canada, Saudi Arabia, and we're looking for more partners on that. Finally, one point. All of you in this audience know, I don't need to explain this to you, that the United States created a companion process to the 3Cs initiative, PTEC, the Partnership for Transatlantic Energy Cooperation. This signature initiative has the complete support of this administration. We will continue to work with you. We will work on cybersecurity as we have. We'll help you to map your grids. We will help you to integrate renewables into your systems as you move forward to achieve your own targets and to create the jobs that you can do on that. We want to make sure that climate is part of PTEC moving forward, because again, that is one conversation moving forward. And it is not just about the threat. It's not just about the things we're worried about. And again, it is this opportunity for job creation. President Biden has said it again and again. It is the watchword of this administration. Climate action is job creation. It is the same conversation. And that's the conversation we want with you. We want to create jobs here. We want to create jobs in the United States and move forward to that future which will make us all more prosperous and safer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Light. I think we are now ready to move into the first sub-panel that we have. Talking about 3Cs initiative, it has always started with natural gas. And when we were putting together the plan for today's event, we have never had any doubts that we should start with natural gas. We have some special announcement after the natural gas sub-panel, so let me keep the suspense until the end of the panel. But before that, I'm so happy to have the Minister of Energy of Romania with us, Minister Popescu. Thank you so much for being with us. Do you have an opening statement, or shall we start with the questions?
How you want. I can answer the question. I can have a statement how you want. How it's easier. It depends on you. You are the moderator.
Yeah, I have prepared an opening question just because Romania, for a century, has been in the forefront of the oil and gas developments in the region. And if we look at the infrastructure plans for the region, pipelines like BRUA are definitely in the forefront. So my question was, with those discoveries that were announced in the Black Sea and with your recent announcement about the M&A activity there, do you see those discoveries as a driver of infrastructure development in the oil and gas sector?
Yes, as you mentioned, Romania already finished its part of the BRUA. BRUA is a part of the vertical corridor, but Unfortunately, we cannot talk about a vertical corridor if we don't have an interconnector between Greece and Bulgaria. So please hurry up and do it, because all countries, all Europe need it. And fortunately for us, BRUA, it's now at 100% full of gas, so we transport already gas. We had, as you mentioned, we had a reserve of oil and gas. We found gas in the Black Sea. It was a joint venture between OMV Petron and Exxon, the Americans from Exxon. Last year, the Americans announced that they want to leave, and I said if Exxon don't want to complete their exploitation, I want the Romanian states want the national company Romgaz to be in. And now at this point, Romgaz and Exxon are negotiating about buying Romgaz the 50% of Neptune Deep. There it's a lot of gas there, and we see gas as a transition fuel. We also are part of the Green Deal. We fully support Green Deal, but we have in our energetic mix coal, so we want to use gas natural gas as a transition fuel. And we are also part of the European Union and a part of the 10 like-minded member states, so we fully support natural gas. As part of our mix, we also support nuclear. We are a pro-nuclear country, and as you know, we announced that we have an agreement with USA, intergovernmental agreement with the United States, and a cooperation in the nuclear field. We want to build another 2 reactors, that's 3 and 4 reactors in Chernavoda, and also to cooperate in a smaller modular reactor and civil nuclear. So I can stop if you have more questions.
We haven't rehearsed this, of course, but you have invited us to give you an update on the Greek-Bulgarian interconnector, and we are delighted today to have among us as a speaker on this panel, Ms. Teodora Georgieva, and she's now about to give us an update of this project, which, in my opinion, ticks all the boxes for a successful 3Cs type initiative. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sirelestov. Thank you for, I'm really honored for being in such a high-level event. It also shows how important the project is and how many stakeholders are interested in the completion and in the project itself. Let me brief you shortly. So the project, as you can see here, we're talking about 180 TQM project, which is linking to TAP, which is part of Southern Corridor. We are developing a project at the level of 3 BCM, out of which 1 BCM is coming from Azerbaijan, Caspian region. And also we are connecting with, by connecting with TAP, we are becoming part of this Southern Corridor. On the top of this, we are connecting with, in Bulgaria with Bulgartransgaz, and also we are connecting with Greek DESFA system. The potentials of IGB are of crucial importance because we are talking about a project which is really vital importance for energy security, really project on a regional level. It is not only PCI, but it's one of the top 8 projects which is part of CESEC initiatives, which despite the fact that it's not so big, it is of huge importance. It is also part of vertical corridor, as has been mentioned by my colleague before, and I'm happy to hear that we do have another stakeholder waiting for finalization of the project. So the real synergy IGB is having with FSRU Alexandroupolis, which is really boosting, is going to really to utilize the whole potential of the project. That's why we are really waiting for finalization of FSRU Alexandroupolis, and we are happy to inform that also the shareholder structure is almost over, and we do have participation from Bulgarian government also. So the potentials are a lot from LNG coming from USA, Israel, Cyprus, Egypt. So talking about market, if we purely link IGB to Bulgaria, it is really a game changer to Bulgaria because it is currently the market is linked almost 100% with one source. So you can imagine by readiness of IGB that it could change the whole, let's say, really the game in the whole market in Bulgaria. So that's our hope, but not limited to Bulgaria. Also, IGB could supply through FSRU Ukraine, why not Balgarden? So let's say potentials are a lot. So what makes really such projects difficult is really to structure them in a way that they are going to be competitive. We are talking about, so that costs us a bit more time because we are talking about financial structure for us is of crucial importance in order to have a competitive tariff. That's why we do have here finalized capex at the level of 240 million euro, out of which we are using 110 million euro sovereign guarantee, behind which we do have a long-term contract with the European Investment Bank. We do have also grants for one is at the level of 45 million euro, and the other one, which took a long time to have, is at the level of 39 million euro. And that's how you can see that we are talking about equity debt, which is really very competitive and making the project really competitive. So the structure is also not, is very complex of the project because we are talking about a unique example of public-private partnership. So having here 50% belong to Bulgarian government through Bulgarian Energy Holding, the other 50% belong to Poseidon, behind which we do have EDF, Edison, and also DEPA, which is a Greek company, alternative of our Bulgargas. So you can imagine that with this unique public partnership, we do have lots of stakeholders, which are Bulgarian government, also Greek government, and we are happy to have on our way much more like European Union, like USA, like Azerbaijani partners, which are really helping for this project to happen. So it's also a complex project from regulatory point of view because in order to be feasible, despite the fact that it is of crucial importance for energy security, we do have, it should be ensure this feasibility. We run some market tests where we currently have booked 50% of the capacity out of 3 BCM. We go through, so possibly it's good to mention that here it's just in front of us is one of our shipper also that we would rather prefer to have commitment before COD. We're talking about Linden and Mr. Stephen Payne, so I really appreciate his commitment together with Overgas, and it is something which is of vital importance also both for our feasibility, but also strategic is giving a very important sign for Bulgaria and for the project itself. So we do have exemption. Without exemption, we go through clearance from European Union. We do have also exemption from 3 criteria, 100% exemption from tariff, which is ensuring sustainability, 50% from third-party access, and also, let's say 30% from ownership. In other words, we are becoming, ICGB is an infrastructure that will become another ITO or another TSO in Bulgaria. So in this respect, we are going to really to increase competitiveness also in this direction. Also from shippers' point of view, we are going to have newcomers, 4 newcomers, because we do have shippers from not only from shareholders, as I mentioned, but also we have great hopes, and hopefully together after a good announcement, the hopes will be much more verified that we will have also Linden on board. So what was important is that it took us long, so I'm responsible from 2015 years, it took us long to verify the financing structure and a kind of real FID, which let's say activate all the shareholders, has happened 2019, where we signed vital documents. You're seeing here, we're talking about EIB loan. And also I missed to mention that we also have a state aid clearance. So all this took us time, but we are very happy to be supported by European Union and go through really complex processes. And we also, during the way let's say at the same date, we also signed EPC contract and line pipe contract and let's say also owner engineering contract. So the question here is that all this also took time because we are running the project under Public Procurement Act and we have been appealed, and that's caused at least 1 and more year delay. Especially for projects like us, which are of geopolitical importance, it is a good, let's say, forum for some delays, unfortunately. But on the other hand, we are very much transparent and we are very much watched. We are audited all the time, so we do not have concern from this perspective. So fact and figures, so we are talking about EPC contract which signed for 18 months. Now there is an extension for 8 more months, and EPC contractor committed himself to finalize the project by end of December. So line pipe delivery, we have Corinth on board, the company that fulfill fully their milestones. So we are happy to say that we are really satisfied from their job. So regarding EPC contract, we do have one company, Avax, Greek company, which is on board, and they signed contracts. So where are we currently? What we can say that we do have welding, let's say, a very high level, so only 25 kilometers should be welded. We have more than 100 kilometers which are really already backfilled. So let's say the project is really progressing very well. So we have been hit definitely by COVID, and not only by COVID, but by some additional procedures that we need for one of our crossing. But generally we are well on track. Also what is, let's say, important here to be mentioned, that we are not talking about only line pipe contract, but we do have also equipment, which is two gas metering stations, Stara Zagora, where we are linked with Bulgar Transgas, and one gas metering station in Comitini, where we are linked with both TEP and DESFA. And also 7 block valve stations. So this equipment is also increasing the complexity. On the top of this, we do have 2 crossings, which are 2 crossings, one of Maritza, 550 meters, the other one, Studencu Adanets, 1,650 meters, all of them through horizontal drilling, which is really high technologically, and also especially the one for Studencu Adanets is really at a European level of complexity. I would like to mention today is that most probably by the end of the day it will be clear do we really cross the HDD Maritza successfully, but there are good indications to mention that it is we are almost over, and we managed with one important milestone. Tomorrow we'll announce if it has been confirmed to me by the end of the day. Here, we do have some opportunities, but I would like to mention one which is also very adequate for this forum. So on the top of the one that based on opportunities, we may increase capacity. I would like to mention the one with possibilities to have a corridor and link between FSR Alexandroupolis and IGB. And this could really, it is also very good because we will have a separate corridor, direct one. On the top of this, we are talking about shippers who are going to be really very much attracted, and I think that such a project could be really the one for discussion at this scale of 3 Cs. The rest, I think that I have mentioned, and I don't want to, so mostly to mention that we are going to enter to COD now. We promised, and we do have approval of regulator by end of June 2022. So on the top of commissioning, which is complex, I would like to mention that we need to be licensed by both Bulgarian and Greek regulator. We should be certified. So there are also commercial challenges that we are running on the way. So I don't know, so mostly they can help.
Yeah, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Ms. Georgieva, while we are watching...
So if there are questions, I'm ready.
A film on the development of the project, I hope Minister Popescu, by the next 3 Cs Initiative Summit, we will have the project completed, and so the brewer will continue the development.
I heard July 2022.
Right. Sure.
You can boost the process by booking capacity, so the process could be boosted. Yes.
Yeah, and
This is the most important date,
Yeah.
July 20.
absolutely, absolutely, and that's a commitment from this stage. Ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to have a company like Siemens with us today. This is a company that has played very important role for the energy sector of the region, and I really hope that it will continue playing that role. Mr. Jon Schmucker, the Senior Vice President for Generation of Large Rotating Equipment, is with us from Germany. And I would like to ask you, Mr. Schmucker, what are the main technologies for decarbonization in the cost-effective way that Siemens sees feasible?
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for having me here at this very important event, and congratulations to this very impressive infrastructure project. I think we discussed a couple of times, and I think there's good agreement in this room and also at the presidential panel how important energy is, not only to fuel economic growth and industrial growth, but also in terms of the climate change. And I think we all as stakeholders and decision makers need to do our part here to get that problem addressed, and I believe it's the greatest challenge of our time. And as Siemens Energy, our goal is, of course, to support customers on their decarbonization journey and also to help societies to transform to a low carbon economy. And I often get the question, okay, how do we get there, right? How do we get there? And many people believe there's a silver bullet. There's the one-size-fits-all solution, but that is really not the case. And as Siemens Energy, we have the benefit of really having a leading portfolio from fossil technologies up to renewable technologies. So large and small gas turbines, steam turbines, generators, but also quite a good footprint in wind, offshore and onshore. So we have no own interest in a way to position a certain product. Looking now at the situation in Bulgaria, and I think same applies to Romania and to Poland, and what the minister here also explained, I think there is two questions to be addressed. And the first is how to increase the competitiveness of the energy sector. Looking at the age of the fleet, I mean, in Bulgaria, I believe 85% of the fleet is older than 25 years. Average efficiency in fossil gas-fired power generation is below 30%, so this is clearly below what we typically see across the globe. And the second question then is, okay, how do we transition to low-carbon economy? Considering again that Bulgaria is heavily depending on coal. It's a fact, right? You can have the political vision, and you need to have the political vision and the political goal, but there's also a physical reality and a fact that needs to be considered. And also, I think we should not forget the social impact, right? There is a lot of people working in mining. There's a lot of people employed in power generation today, and this also needs to be considered. We need to bring the people along with us on that journey. And that's why we, and I personally believe that natural gas is a very important fuel, and I think we discussed that also here already in terms of coal to gas shift. Many people believe there is a coal to renewable shift. I don't believe so, because this ends up in a very costly situation. I can tell you Germany basically is doing a nuclear coal to renewable one in all shift. Nobody's doing that across the globe. And I pay 30 € per kilowatt hour now. And the situation is getting worse. And we have 250 gigawatts of installed capacity, 250 gigawatts of installed capacity for 85 gigawatts peak load. Yeah, and this gives you a little bit of a picture of how expensive our system in Germany is. But coming back to Bulgaria, so I think coal to gas is the first step. With natural gas, of course, we need to integrate renewables. And there's already a good starting point here also in the country. I think we also need to, of course, talk about storage. There is no long-term storage available. That's a fact. We are working on it. It will come at some point of time. But of course, you can work with batteries, and also there's certain thermal storage available. That's the first step. I think the second step, and this was not very much discussed today at least, is hydrogen. I think we believe in hydrogen. And you can, of course, then replace natural gas with hydrogen. Not to 100%. I mean, this is also a costly game, but to a certain percentage. And we have developed already gas turbines that are able to burn up to 30-50%. And then we can also talk about sector coupling ultimately, right? We talk a lot about energy, but there's also energy consumption in industry, energy consumption in mobility, and the sector coupling is also something to be considered in a third step. And ultimately, I believe, yes, you can always call that a challenge, right? But it's also an opportunity. And I think it's an opportunity because it brings advanced technologies to the region. It stimulates investment. And I think we are talking about funds and money, and I think those advanced technologies attract investors, attract also EU funds as part of the Green Deal. And last but not least, we are also able then to create jobs in power generation, but also then through the industrial growth. And that's why I hope that we can translate ambitious plans into concrete, specific actions and get moving, right? That's what we are after, and happy to support with our portfolio wherever we can.
Thank you so much. And we are running out of time, but I have one hanging question. And when we talk about natural gas, and we have the 3Cs initiative, naturally we need to ask the question of what about the LNG supplies from the US? What is the future of LNG supplies for this region in the context of 3Cs initiative? And I think, Mr. Light, if you could address this question.
Sure. So I think that if you look at the figures today, you will not see a shortage in US LNG exports. In fact, you'll see a period where now that our exports are at an all-time high. And this is the yearly average, and the projections, if you look at the contracts, continues to go forward. The worry, though, is this, right? Gas can be a great transition fuel from coal, but not if the transition is from coal to dirty gas. You may as well still be burning coal, frankly. And if you look what's the dirtiest gas supply on the planet right now, all the numbers suggest that it comes from Russia. So if that's what you're looking at for your transition right now, you're not making a transition at all. That's point number one. Point number two, of course, that does put pressure on the United States, because our gas can be cleaner than it is now. And the thing that this administration and that my office is absolutely committed to is making American gas exports the cleanest in the world. And it's not just because we think it's a good idea, because that is where the market is going, and that will be where the demand supply goes, and we will be competing with every other gas supplier on the planet to produce the gas that actually can conceivably be a transition. And the final point I'll put is this, is that think about, every country has to make their own decision, obviously, on this. But think about whether or not you can actually afford to full transitions from coal to some kind of gas, and then gas to some kinds of renewables, depending on what your ambition is. And I think that is something you have to think through. That's something you have to look forward to. It also puts countries like the United States on the hook. Our next Earthshot will be on long-term battery storage. It is absolutely the gap that needs to be filled. You couple that with hydrogen, you do more on nuclear, and you begin to have a portfolio with respect to baseload power that can compete. And that's all on us to work on together.
So thank you very much, Mr. Light. I think this puts Mr. Nemski, do you want to?
Just a word?
Yes.
Just.
I can't hear. I'm sorry. I can't hear
excuse me. We will be giving the floor for questions on a later stage. Thank you so much, Minister Nemski. Yep. Yes.
Just few words about our gas projects and situation where we are. We are constructing this north-south transmission corridor. North starts in Norway, goes through Denmark under Baltic Sea, Poland, Slovakia, up to Hungary, and in Hungary it will be joining what our colleagues from Romania are doing, supported by Bulgarians. So we are on a way to create and finalize by next year the real alternative to Russian-dependent route for gas transmission in Central Europe, which is the great achievement, I would say. It gives us in Poland, but not only, it gives for the region, possibility to allow this dependency on Russian Gazprom monopoly, which is, which is itself the achievement. Of course, gas is, we are describing gas as a transitional energy source. Nobody is able to judge today what will be this transition long term. Probably 15 years, probably 25 years, probably up to even 30 years. These investments we are completing today, they will stay on and be used by next 20, 30 years. In a sense, we are completing a certain era, because it won't be big investments in gas systems on the way. What we have to build, for example, in Poland, we need a series of blocks, clean blocks on gas, because we need very fast replacement for coal. And in this sense, this is transitional for Poland. So I can tell you today that by end of 22, this construction will be ready, and formally, gas from Norwegian fields can be available in Romania.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Nemski. And now, as I said, we have a special announcement. So I would like to welcome on stage Stephen Payne, the president of Linden Energy, and Svetoslav Ivanov, CEO of Overgas, to announce their partnership.
Thank you. I'm Steve Payne, president of Linden Energy, based in Houston, Texas. And we're not strangers to the Bulgarian market. We've been here for a while working with Todora and the ICGB project, so we're very excited about what we're doing there, having 10% of the capacity of ICGB. But today, Svetoslav and I are here to announce that Linden Energy will be buying 50% of Overgas Inc. And Overgas, for those of you that don't know, is the largest private gas company in Bulgaria. It has in the ground right now 2,500 kilometers of pipeline, and we are very, very excited about the partnership here. In addition to what we plan to do to help Overgas build out its network here and expand its customer base here, we also are looking hard at the Western Balkans. As you know, Albania and Kosovo basically don't have any kind of a last-mile gas network at all. And so we hope to take what Overgas has done and put it in the Western Balkans as well. So we're very, very excited about the possibilities going forward. I want to end on the fact that some of the 3Cs countries have fully privatized their gas network. Bulgaria is a bit behind on this, and this definitely is something that stifles competition. So we hope that Bulgaria will join many of the other countries who are privatizing, and that will help in diversification of the market. And let me now introduce, actually I do want to also recognize Ambassador Matt Bryza, who is going to be joining the board of Overgas once we complete our transaction. Let me introduce Svetoslav Ivanov, who is the Executive Director of Overgas.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Konstantin. Dear participants in this interesting initiative, after so many positive comments today and discussions, and after so many, let's say, ambitious expectations, I have the pleasure to announce that we really start something what actually already started, but it will become official today. Just to mention a couple of the interesting projects we're going to develop together. On the first place, I would like to mention the potential new LNG terminal on the Albanian coast. On the second place, I would like to mention that we're intending to invest many efforts and money in new gas interconnectors in the region. Steve already mentioned that in the region of the Western Balkans, the people doesn't have access to gas grids. And of course, last but not least, the gasification of many cities and villages in the region, inclusively in Bulgaria, are waiting for new gas infrastructure. What we promise to each other to do is to invest all our efforts in this new beginning, and we believe that in the future it will be seen in at least more effective and useful competition on the first place, mainly of course in the energy sector and especially in the gas sector, and on the second place, more effective use of energy on the Balkans. We should not forget that for the Bulgarian energy, the most serious problems are related with many losses of primary energy in the territory of Bulgaria. So we have, as I mentioned already, the pleasure to announce that in a couple of minutes we're going to sign a document according to which Linden Energy is acquiring 50% of our gas inc, and we start with this a formal beginning of a new partnership. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So congratulations on this great achievement. I think this is a very symbolic big deal for Bulgaria. And this concludes our natural gas sub-panel. Thank you so much for participating. Now, when we were putting together the plan for this energy panel, there were questions about natural gas, there were questions about nuclear, but there was no any doubt that renewables will need to be in front and center of our discussion. And so it is my pleasure to invite the guests that will join us for the renewable energy discussion on stage. Mr. Yves Lestan from Total. He's the managing director for Bulgaria and for Greece. And sometimes we say, why Total? It's an oil and gas major, right? but there are very good news about renewables that he will share with us. We were trying to do everything so that we don't have anybody joining virtually. Unfortunately, Mr. Olivier Marquette, who is the CEO of AES for Bulgaria and the chairman of AmCham, couldn't join us for medical reasons, so he will be joining us online for this discussion. And I'm happy that our keynote speakers can stay and contribute to this discussion. So while we are doing the technical preparation, let me ask Olivier, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, and I hope same goes with you. Am I?
Yes,
out?
we can see you, we can hear you, and we are sorry that you are not here with us. But
I'm sorry as well, but the technology is helping bridging the distance. So
yes, let me start by thanking AmCham and AES for putting together this event. And AES is the biggest investor in the Bulgarian energy sector, and it's one of the biggest investors into the field of energy storage. So could you just give us an overview of where AES stands with the technology about energy storage and your ambition about the region?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So first, I'd like to really congratulate you, Kostadin, on organizing this panel. And it's very clear from how it's organized that there is no one size fits all. And it's very important to have the complementarity between the different technologies that will enable to reach the decarbonization of the energy mix. And I think AES is a great example of that. Because in Bulgaria, as you mentioned, we're the largest investor in the electricity sector. And we are a leader in wind generation, so on the renewable side. And we are also a leader in thermal generation through the AES Galabovo, which is the most modern thermal plant in the whole region and contributes to energy security, energy independence, and grid stability to Bulgaria. And I think it's very obvious that we have different priorities, and sometimes they are quite frankly competing. And the solution is simply to have a little bit of all these technologies playing together. Today, I will obviously focus on the renewable side. And indeed, as you say, well, AES has been really a leader in the deployment of innovation and technology across the globe in the market where we operate. And so today, I would like to share just a few thoughts both on solar energy and energy storage. And so in terms of the renewable energy in general, it's been quite amazing to see the decrease in cost over the last 10 years. And that's something which really today enables the energy transition. What used to be, quite frankly, a dream 10 years ago in terms of greening the energy matrix, today is absolutely possible. And they are I would like just to share a few numbers because they are very telling. So over the last decade, so from 2010 to 2020, the cost of solar energy, the cost of the panels, decreased by a factor of 10, meaning it's a 90% reduction, 90, in the price of solar equipment in 10 years. Same goes with the batteries. You know, we talked about lithium-ion batteries to provide energy storage. Same cost reduction of a factor 10 over 10 years. Wind is pretty much the same situation, 60% reduction on the cost per megawatt over the last decade. And so following that, today, renewable energy is the cheapest electricity source in many countries around the globe. So for example, in China, the cheapest energy today is solar. In the US, the cheapest energy in many states is actually wind, and same goes with Brazil. And so today, thanks to that, 2/3 of the new build globally, so more than 66-67% of the total new capacity built in the world comes from renewable energy. So that's an amazing increase compared to where we were 10 years ago. So now coming to some example about AES. So the first one I would like to talk about is Fluence, which is a joint venture which we have between AES and Fluence. And so I was glad to see Mr. Schumacher from Siemens, with whom we collaborate. And so AES has been a world leader in energy storage for more than 10 years now. And so I would like to state that through this joint venture today, we have deployed or been awarded 2.4 gigawatts of energy storage worldwide in more than 100 projects over more than 20 countries. And so just to give an example, so recently in California, I know California is very much in the spotlight these days because of the draft and the issue about the safety of the grid. We just commissioned an energy storage facility which actually contributes to supporting the grid, and it's 100 megawatt, and it provides reliable energy for 4 full hours. And so that's absolutely a utility scale facility. So of 100 megawatt, we just won an award in the US, a very prestigious Edison Award. And so we're very proud of this facility. And this facility, interestingly, has been built responding to a tender calling for the most competitive technology. And energy storage is the one that we proposed and that won this tender. And so my main message on this is energy storage used to be seen as expensive. Today, it's commercially available and it's commercially ready to support the integration of renewable energy in the world. And then one more minute on solar. I think similarly, solar energy is undergoing a massive revolution. And so just one example I would like to give from the AES portfolio. So we are currently deploying energy through an Australian supplier called 5B, and that ensures that we install twice as much solar capacity per square meter in a third of the time. And so that's particularly important in countries which have limited land resources. And so we are seeing as well more and more these days that land scarcity is an issue. And so again, technology is here to solve this. And so just to give an example, the last project we built with this technology, so it was a facility of 2 megawatts in Panama. We built it in 10 days with 7 people. So it just gives a sense of the speed of solar technology today. Again, 2 megawatt was built in 10 days. It was actually between Christmas and New Year in December of 2020. So I'm just leaving this at this point, but just to say that so much has happened to today enable the deployment of renewable energy at wide scale to achieve in the European Union. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Olivier. It's fascinating, and I think the region is looking forward to further investments from AES, especially in the areas that you have mentioned. Now I'm turning to Yves, and it's been fascinating to see Total changing its name to Total Energies, but also changing it from an oil and gas major into a broad energy company. And would you just walk us through this transformation and what are the ultimate aims for the company?
First of all, I would like to thank you, Kostadin, for inviting me to this prestigious panel. I'm very pleased and very honored to be here. Indeed, Total changed its name. The name of the company has been changed a month ago, a bit more than a month ago, so we're now Total Energies. And it illustrates a new ambition in line with the net zero carbon emission ambition that has been set up by the company last year. We're not new in renewables, and I will come back to it. Maybe just before digging into that, I'm also pleased to be here. I was really surprised to be invited to the renewable panels because I've been working in exploration production for oil and gas for 25 years now, and I'm the managing director of the affiliates in Bulgaria and Greece. But I think it's also a symbol of the change of the company, where we all committed to this new world and this challenge of climate change, and we are all committed to work together to bring a new energy mix also to the world with a net zero carbon emission ambition. Because indeed we live in a world that still relies on 80% on fossil fuels for energy. And we have only a few decades to reduce the energy emission. We live also in a world that needs more energy. We have a growth of population. And this is a challenge. So the challenge is more energy and less emissions. And more responsible also energy production, because we are facing stakeholders which want also more and more safety and responsibility in what we're doing. So this is the goal that Total Energies has set up, and this is the new direction with a commitment to be net zero by 2050, not only for the emissions that we produce through our installations, the so-called Scope 1 and Scope 2 CO2 emission. And this is by working on energy efficiency, on reducing flaring, for instance, on our oil and gas production installations, but also on developing carbon sinks, because we will still be producing CO2. It doesn't mean we won't be producing CO2 by 2050, but we will have to or store or compensate for this CO2 emissions through carbon sinks, and we are developing CCS, carbon capture and storage activities, and also natural-based solutions to capture CO2. But we have also another ambition, which is in line with the European ambition to be net zero by 2050, is to have Scope 1 plus Scope 2 plus Scope 3, which is the energy, this is the emissions that our customers, are emitting through the consumptions of our product, we want to have also the ambition to be net zero by then, which means that we have to make a change also in the energy mix we're selling to our customers. That means moving very strongly to renewables. But it doesn't mean that Total Energy will stop being an oil and gas major. Basically, we have the ambition to remain an oil and gas major, to change the energy mix when it comes to fossil fuels, to become more and more a gas producer and less an oil producer. And we plan to grow, actually, our production of gas in the coming years. But at the same time, we plan to grow, and very strongly, our renewable electricity. So where do we stand today in renewable electricity? Actually, we started 10 years ago, more or less, in renewables, in Total Energies. And little by little, we worked in PV, we worked in wind. And we're now in 2021 producing more or less, we have a capacity of almost 8 gigawatts. And we have in projects, in constructions, under 5 gigawatts, which will come on stream pretty soon. In our portfolio, we also have projects which will be producing by 2025. We plan a capacity of 35 gigawatts by 2025. And we have an ambition by 2030 to produce 100 gigawatts and to be among the top 5 of the renewable electricity producers. So we see that the world is changing. Our peers, mainly European peers, have also taken these tracks with slightly different strategies, but Equinor, BP, Shell are all getting into renewables. And we enter a new world where we will compete with companies like the one by Olivier. But we believe, and especially we believe, that we can bring also our know in certain fields. And I'm thinking about, and we're here in the 3 Cs seminar, so I guess we should talk about offshore wind. And this is also offshore wind, some area where we really want to bring our know-how in terms of offshore operations, offshore project developments, offshore maintenance that we have through the oil and gas industry, and also offshore project management, because when we're talking about offshore wind, I guess we're talking about much larger scales than the wind projects which are onshore. We're talking about several hundred megawatts projects, up to 1 gigawatt project. So this is very big projects where we'll have a few challenges to solve, but already in our portfolio we have 6 gigawatts of projects for offshore wind in the UK, but also in Asia, in Taiwan and Korea, both in bottom fixed and in floating wind farms. So this is just to give you a flavor of what we're doing. Maybe I could add one word about what we're doing in the 3 Cs countries. We are already present in Bulgaria. We have 2 through the participation in a company called Novenergia. We have participation in 2 PV plants. We also have a participation in Poland through Novenergia as well in offshore wind, in onshore wind, sorry. And I guess we're interested to dig in more into what in wind and offshore wind. I guess there are some interesting settings when it comes to offshore wind also in these 3 Cs countries.
Well, Yves, thank you so much. Just talking about the European competition and the offshore wind, I think it's high time for me to introduce Mr. Kurt Donnelly, Acting Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. I was just thinking, somehow American companies, European companies talking more or less about the European counterparts. And what is, with the new administration and the focus on renewables, what is your estimate about the appetite of American companies coming back and investing into the region?
Thank you. My answer is pretty simple. Olivier, I think, made a very good case that right now, in most cases, the best choice is renewables. That's clear. That's going to become more and more clear. That doesn't mean it's simple, which is why we support so much investment in technologies like storage, which is essential for making this work. That's why we also support nuclear, because we think that's also essential for making this work. Governments are making decisions, setting targets. We're coming together in the G7, the G20, and COP26 to set targets for ourselves. That's absolutely essential to set our ambition. But the other side of it is, what is the response? And governments are not going to have enough money to make this happen. It has to be the private sector. And what I think is most encouraging is how the private sector has, over the past decade, as we just heard, pivoted so dramatically. And why are they doing that? Because they see the future. Because their life depends on guessing right on what the future holds, where they can make the profits to be they can survive in the future, not just now. And we see that dramatically in so many companies. They have to respond to their shareholders. They have to respond because they need people to have confidence that they're going to make money. And that choice is increasingly evident that it's in renewable technologies. And not only do they bring the expertise, the technology, they bring the investment. Because again, governments, international organizations do not have the investment. We heard tens or hundreds of trillions of dollars it's going to take. And one of the great strengths of our international energy companies, I used to say oil companies, is their ability to generate capital, to invest in huge projects. So this is very important. And we're seeing that in our companies in the United States as well. And I think it is encouraging to see how much cooperation there is on these kinds of issues. And even things that are difficult, just one example is on methane emissions. Our companies are really trying to get ahead of this issue because they understand that if something like natural gas continues to be a viable choice at all, consumers are going to insist that it be clean. And methane is one option on that. Carbon capture and storage is maybe another option. There are lots of ways to do that, but it is essential that, as Andrew had pointed out before, we don't just trade one dirty fuel for another dirty fuel. If we're going to use gas as a transition fuel, it needs to be clean. And that is coming from governments, but it's also coming from our consumers. So I'm very hopeful and very positive, and I think the private sector response is essential, and that I think is what is most encouraging. Total changed its name. Companies are changing their policies, and they're changing where they are making their bets, where they're putting their money. They're taking those risks on because they're confident that the future is renewables, and I think that's so encouraging.
Yeah, thank you so much. And talking about the private response, I'm inclined to ask Mr. Light, in the context of the new administration, what are the type of renewable energy technologies that you see being mostly promoted for reaching the net zero goal?
So I just want to echo one thing that my colleague Kurt Donnelly just said, and underscore it, and it also connects with the anecdote that Olivier gave us on how fast, right, you built, between Christmas and New Year's, built several megawatts of solar. There's a recent Bloomberg New Energy Finance study that shows that, in fact, it's not just that hour for hour solar is now cheaper, right, than fossils. It's solar. New solar is cheaper in many parts of the world from existing coal. And just think about what a dramatic difference, right, that is. So, of course, like, things don't happen instantaneously, even as fast as the anecdote that Olivia put out there, but you have to work on it, and you have to invest in it, and you can't just shut off the power, obviously. But there is an option out there that I think that is incredibly important. So I think that the sort of the two areas I'd say that we're working the most on is, of course, continuing to accelerate the drive down in the cost of wind and, three areas: wind and solar, conventional renewables there. Number two, we're investing heavily in new transmission lines, decreasing the cost of new transmission lines, and increasing the efficiency of the systems that we use to integrate renewables onto existing infrastructure webs. This is a problem, obviously, for many countries out there, and it is something now we've got our 17 national labs and others kind of working on together to make sure that this is this should be a technology that is available at very, very low cost, if any cost, to countries around the world to make this transition possible. And the third thing that we've got to invest in, and we're investing in heavily, both in terms of the effort that we put into it and the amount of money that we're going to put into it, is on the supply chain area. And this is absolutely critical. I mean, and it's not just because of the increase in demand when you look at EVs, when you look at the components that go into wind, when you look at polysilicon, but it also the threats to the integrity, right, of some of those supply chains, which we are feeling intensely right now, especially when it comes to the revelations about forced labor conditions in Xinjiang, which unfortunately has swamped the market. And the United States is not alone in countries around the world that sort of let that part of the economy go. So we've got to rebuild it, and we're looking for partners throughout this region, in fact, and I've been incredibly impressed with the number of countries in this region who have come forward and say, we want to create an indigenous photovoltaic capacity to build in our countries. And I think we can partner with them on this. So think about where that leaves us. It's not just understanding our supply chains, but ensuring that we can diversify them and then also make them reliable. So the International Energy Agency, right, was created decades and decades ago. And one of the requirements, of course, is that you have to have a certain amount of oil surplus on hand to be a member of the IEA. Well, the economy has changed. Things have changed in the world. And we need to start looking at now ensuring that we all have abundant sources of critical minerals for our new renewable energy supply chains. That should become the new criteria we're looking at for those countries who want to accelerate the new energy economy.
Thank you so much. And just final question to Secretary of State Naimski. We have a wonderful presentation coming up of the transition of our main mining region and the coal-fired power plants into a greener future. But could you just share a few takeaways of the journey that Poland has taken, since there is a green energy revolution in Poland, but you were in pretty much the same position as Bulgaria?
All right, I already mentioned that, you know, our starting point is very difficult, because we have to replace about 80% of generation on coal with something else. And the process is already started. We do have a number of offshore investments already on the way. I can tell you we have onshore wind installed in a huge volume already. We have more than 6 gigawatts of onshore wind installed. And the consumption, the demand in Poland is in a peak, is about 23, 24 gigawatts. Means that if we have strong wind, we have to shut down series of blocks on coal. They don't like it. And if we don't have a wind, we have to use them. And you know, wind is dependable on weather, right? And photovoltaic as well. So this is why we have on the way series of blocks on gas, not only for balancing renewables, but also for base load, unfortunately, because same time we have a project of phasing out blocks on coal. So this is really difficult scheme. This is, you know, it needs balancing, you know, between technologies, because, you know, the basis, basic assumption is that we stay safe, right? And at the end, I would like to say something like that. If it is so good with renewables, specifically offshore renewables, why the private sector still demand state aid?
Thank you. That's a challenging question, and I think we are moving towards no need for state aid. But next we have a presentation. But what we call is the heart of the Bulgarian energy sector is the so-called Maritsa East complex. And I would like to welcome on stage Rumiana Grozeva, the Executive Director of Stara Zagora Regional Economic Development Agency. She's going to give us a presentation on the sustainable future for the Maritsa East complex. This is something that is on the top of the agenda of pretty much everybody in Bulgaria at the moment. So welcome.
Dear Kostadin, dear panelists, dear colleagues, first of all, thanks for this opportunity to present the most brown point of Bulgaria, Maritsa East, in its greener future. But as the protocol requires, let me first introduce myself. As Kostadin said, I'm Rumiana Grozeva. I'm the Executive Director of the Regional Development Agency of Stara Zagora, but also at least two hats on my head. As a member of the newly established Modular Industrial Zone Zagore, and being the Executive Director of the agency, also coordinating managing authority of the newly established European Digital Innovation Hub Zagore. But today, I'll begin the story for greening of Maritsa East with my head as locality, Stara Zagora. Even sometimes to be called Maritsa East Basin, we have to be honest and to say that Stara Zagora as a city, as a region also, will be the most impacted by this just transition. So this transition, this impact could be positive or negative. But because I have only 5 minutes, I will begin this story for the greening of Maritsa East as like Scheherazade. The most interesting is forthcoming, and you have to stay tuned. So, almost 70 years ago, Bulgaria as a state began building its huge mining energy complex, Maritsa East, based on the available in the region low-quality lignites. 70 years and billions of investments, public and private, the last decade. Probably a dedicated research will be needed to calculate the approximate amount of these investments. Why I am focusing on that? The results are tangible even today in a large extent, and you can see part of them listed on the slide. People who are not ready to see the greening and investment potential of Maritsa East, they use these results as arguments against, talking about mainly of the huge investment which will be needed to do this green transition. But it will happen, obviously, the new energy mix is coming. So, and something curious which is not presented on the slide, but it's really interesting. 240 square kilometers are available now for investment in Maritsa East Basin, and they're equivalent to 12 JFK airports, 20 Heathrow airports, 60 times the port of Shanghai, the biggest port in the world, and 240 Tesla gigafactories, including infrastructure. I could say that it's a huge investment potential. And yes, if you want to build your new smart data center, you could come in Stara Zagora. Why the foundation, in spite of this brown point of Bulgaria? The location of Maritsa East provides the capacity for at least 10 gigawatt solar park, provides 1/3 of the annual power consumption of Bulgaria and clean energy for green hydrogen. The required infrastructure for energy transmission is already available there. And you can see again and again all of this potential for the green hydrogen hub Maritsa East and the pipeline both to the next chemical companies, which is Neohim and Lukoil, 1.5 distance, hand distance, but also pipeline to Greece and EU H2 pipeline, and some more figures are presented in the table, also will be available on the slide after that, I guess. So what is the potential of the Maritza East Green Hub? Maritza East is a good place to develop biomass and biofuel, first, second, and third generation, and don't forget that the transport as a sector is in the main focus of the Green Deal, of the greening. But also some other opportunities, not all of them, but just presented in a short. And just a quick note that the greening in the region is already started. The second stage of the newly established modern industrial zone Zagore is now designing as a carbon neutral. The European Digital Innovation Hub Zagore is established as a collaboration between the local authorities, businesses, NGOs, academia. Power plant to Maritza East, the state-owned company power plant, and the NEOHIM are members of this Digital Innovation Hub Zagore. Also, an Institute for Sustainable Transition and Development as part of Trachea University is already created there, not exactly a research institute, rather think tank, but it's in Stara Zagora. And the most important probably, the funding. Some figures are already available as funding from EU budget, from national recovery and resilience plans, from the Just Transition Plan for Stara Zagora, but just the beginning of such possible funding. And because I said that I have only 5 minutes, this is just the beginning of the story of greening. And if Kostadin allows me, I'd like to announce that in the end of September 29th and 30, we're organizing the second edition of the Social Policy Dialogue in Stara Zagora called New Energy Mix, and probably the next days it will be also announced in the social media, our web, and I hope to see you there. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Rumena. And just at the end of the Renewable panel, let me just say that what we saw from the very beginning, the AES presentation, actually AES is the biggest investor in these lignites, and what we see is a large opportunity to deploy their new technologies into this region and to make it greener. So we are running out of time, but I'm so happy that we have the nuclear sub-panel as our final panel, and I would like to welcome our panelists. Ms. Dora Zombori, Ministerial Commissioner for International Energy and Climate Relations and Ambassador at Large for Energy and Climate. Welcome to the stage. I was so very keen to have the Hungarian example presented here because we see in the region many projects, nuclear projects, which start, and so little that finishes. And I just wanted Hungary to present the takeaways from this collaboration that you have managed to create for the PACS-2 project. So could you walk us through the process and the takeaways from this process?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the question. And first of all, I'm honored to be here. As for the PACS nuclear power plant, we already have 4 units operational as of now, and it provides about like 40–50% of carbon-free electricity annually. As Minister Naimski pointed out earlier, it has to be up to the governments to decide how to reach climate neutrality. And Hungary made a decision. We see nuclear energy as a key element to achieve the Paris climate goals. So the decision was made, and the project has evolved on the way. But now, right now, like I can say, it's a great example of international cooperation, because the main supplier is a Russian supplier, but they're also working with other companies together. So, for example, the turbines and the related machinery will be provided by an American-French consortium, GE and Alstom. And the control system will be provided by French and German cooperation, Framatome and Siemens. And we also picked a German company to prepare the soil just to start the construction. The project right now, it's awaiting approval for our national authority, Atomic Energy Authority. We expect the decision in the fall to grant the construction license. When this decision is made, after that, we will be able to start the project. And we expect that the 2 new units will be operational by the end of this decade.
Yeah, and thank you so much. There's a big debate in Central and Eastern Europe because most of the countries from the 3C initiative, they do have running nuclear plants.
Mm-hmm.
And the debate is pretty much around, should we do the next phase, like PACS 2, Unit 5 and 6 in your case, or should we do with brand new units? So what's your takeaway? Was this the right decision to place new units in the existing plant, or should we go with a brand new unit?
I think time will tell, and also like it depends on each country how to decide. Right now in the 3Cs initiative region, I see like Poland as a potential big market, and it's an essential part to do like coal phase out.
Sure.
But also when we regard like all the technologies available as of now, we see nuclear as something which is reliable, resilient, carbon-free, and also available 24/7. So, but as for the technologies, I think time will tell. And there are already companies present here who are in the testing phase, and already companies who are well established in the market. We made our decision, and we made it international.
Thank you so much. And I don't see any panel talking about nuclear without inviting Westinghouse. So I was very keen, as Westinghouse has provided around 50% of all nuclear units around the world, to welcome Mr. Ivan Pironko with us, the director for Bulgaria. Westinghouse has done a lot for Bulgaria, and I understand you have turned your presence in Bulgaria as a hub for your growth in the region. Could you walk us through the success story of Westinghouse in the region?
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation. Westinghouse, as you correctly said, is the pioneer in the commercial nuclear sector. And we are investing a lot in Bulgaria, in the Bulgarian engineering capacity. We have, for the last 10 years, growing our Center of Excellence, as we call it, in terms of design and implementation of control systems. And our team in Bulgaria is providing projects for many, many countries, not only Bulgaria, where we support the safe and long-term operation of Units 5 and 6, but we had also projects in UK, we had projects in Switzerland, Hungary. We have a very successful project finished several years ago in PACS 1 to 4, Czech Republic. So I think that Westinghouse finds Bulgaria as a great country for developing and expanding our engineering capabilities. And we do that because we really trust that there is a lot of potential, and there are very highly qualified engineers, especially in that nuclear sector. What I also would like to say is that when I was listening to the energy panel, what I heard is that the most important is zero carbon footprint, secure, reliability, and cost efficient. And to be honest with you, nuclear brings all of this. I mean, there is no doubt about it. And then when I was listening about during the president panel, I heard innovation, digitalization, cybersecurity. Nuclear is all of this. We have, I think that nuclear, because of the complexity of the whole process and the conservative approach into the safety, brings advanced technologies. In terms of cybersecurity, I mean, this is extremely critical. In the nuclear, you have more and more digital control systems, and they require cybersecurity. So I can tell you that nuclear is the pioneer in the cybersecurity systems, and Westinghouse, as well as all our partners, are having a lot of systems and products that bring highest cybersecurity protection to the nuclear sector. So, I mean, I know that renewables are really modern, but nuclear is really what will bring baseload and reliable energy for the society. This is what I think.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pironkov. And I've been a nuclear fan for more than 20 years. I couldn't agree more with you. And following the nuclear development for such a long time, small modular reactors have been on the radar for quite some time. But for many years now, this was kind of some kind of a future dream, right? So we are more than happy to have with us Mr. Tom Mundy, the Chief Commercial Officer of NuScale small modular reactors from the United States, to give us an update of is this still the case, or you're moving forward with the implementation stage?
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to present our technology today. And it's more than just a dream. It's, in fact, at NuScale, it will be a reality very soon. Our program is to the point now where we're finalizing the design, we're preparing for manufacture of our major equipment, and we'll be commencing construction on our first project in just a couple of years, with that plant up and running before the end of the decade in the United States, with possibly other projects actually coming online even before that, 2029. So it is a reality, and I think small modular reactor technology is going to be the future of nuclear development worldwide for a number of reasons. And if you can go to the next slide, I'll take a moment to explain a little bit more about SMR technology and why we have that view. The IAEA years ago identified SMRs as generally technologies that have a reactor less than 300 megawatts of power, of generation. Bring to bear advanced passive technology, improved safety performance, improved economics, but also take advantage of full factory fabrication of what has traditionally been equipment that's been constructed, fabricated, or erected in the field itself, moving that to the factory and taking advantage of what academia has coined as the economies of multiples. Because as you make these plants small, you are working against economies of scale, so you need to do something to counter that. And by moving substantial portions of the technology onto the factory floor in a repetitive manufacturing environment, improve risk profile with respect to cost and schedule. In the case of our technology, our heart is what we call the NuScale power module. That's everything needed to essentially produce steam in the power plant, plus the containment, so a containment vessel. So if you compare that to if you're familiar with a large nuclear plant, you have a large containment building. In that building, you have large pieces of equipment, the reactor, steam generators and other things makes the steam. You have a building around that has equipment in it that supports the operation of that equipment, and then that steam is directed to a turbine building. We've taken the entirety of that containment building and changed that into a steel containment vessel that surrounds an integral component, an integral reactor vessel that takes all those individual pieces of equipment and moves it into one. Now, it is quite a bit smaller than these large plants. Thermal power of one of our reactors is only 250 megawatts compared to large power reactors today on the order of 3,000, 4,000, 4,500 megawatts. So we only produce 77 megawatts of electricity with each of these modules, but that module itself is fully factory fabricated. It's been sized to be able to ship to the site by rail, truck, or barge without any field construction, erection, or fabrication of any kind. And it changes the whole dynamic of how the facility is made. Now, you still have to put it in a building, a robust structure that houses that, but it's a very simple structure itself to construct. That's shown on the top portion there. So that's the heart of the technology, but I think there's another slide with this. So you're talking about now technology that not only is well suited for base load, high capacity operations, but extremely flexible in its operation for load following activities, and having features and performance and capability that you don't find in current large reactors, like the ability for island mode operation, black start capability, the ability to provide first responder power, to be sited end of the line or off-grid applications because we don't require any emergency power for the design. extensive load following capability, as I managed, ideally suited to not only provide electricity, but also process heat for any number of process heat applications. Hydrogen production is one that we're studying heavily. And for our technology, we offer different sizes. The technology is also scalable in that you can put anywhere from 1 to however many modules can fit in a particular facility, 4, 6, or 12 module facility. And you don't have to start with whatever the facility holds. You can start with anywhere from 1 to up to 12 for our largest facility, and that produces 924 megawatts of electricity, approaching a gigawatt size facility, but at substantial improvement in economics, shorter construction schedules, and every one of these plants has the performance capability and feature that I mentioned. Just highlighting some of the beyond baseload, certainly can produce large quantities of high capacity, 95% plus capacity factors, but also can deliver process heat and other features and capability that you're just not going to see in current large plants. And we believe that's why NuScale and small modular reactor technologies is the future of the market.
Thank you so much, Tom, and that's very impressive. I'm just turning to the right-hand side here just to say that very often when we talk about in Central and Eastern Europe, when we talk about small modular reactors, the opposition turns to us and say, we're going to invest into those once they invest in the US. So there is always this saying, let me see it operational in the US. So I just want to turn to Mr. Light and ask, what is the future for small modular reactors in the US and how the current administration look at this technology?
I'm happy to answer that question. I want to say one overall thing about the subject of the panel. I believe that decades from now, we're going to look back and we're going to see that a nuclear renaissance on the planet started in Central and Eastern Europe. I think this is the most exciting place anywhere where we're seeing not only looking at small modular reactors and the new technology that's coming online, but the existing, the AP1000 technology, the other competitors out there who are delivering similar vehicles. It's extraordinary, the opportunities here. And all I can say is that I was a baseball player in college, and so I feel like a little like I'm getting unearned runs here because the last team, the Trump administration, was working actively in this region. We're picking up exactly where they left off and supporting the opportunities here. We're working with Poland. I told you that before. We're going to be having many meetings here. We talked to Romania earlier today. Looking forward to our meetings with Slovenia. We talked to Bulgaria. And it goes on and on and on. Czech Republic, it just goes on. It's extraordinary, the opportunities here. We also know we've got stiff competition from the east, the immediate east and the further east and the even further east there. You go Russia, China, right, Korea, come around the rest of the globe to France. There's a lot of competition out there. We know we have to step up our game. So that's point number one. Point number two, when we get to small modular reactors here, anyone who doubts the US commitment here just has to look at the billions of dollars that multiple administrations have invested in the development of this technology, with our partners at NuScale, with other corporations that have gone really from start to very, very fast, very quickly. So that's there. And of course, absolutely, we're going to be doing this in the United States as well. And so, we understand that there are some countries where the regulatory environment or just simple prudence is going to make them very hesitant to go with this technology if it's not already proven somewhere else. So as the major investor in this technology, we know we've got to go there first. Canadians recognize the same thing, and we're also want to partner in creating constantly new partnerships that try to make this technology more accessible, and again, looking at the integration issues on the grid and on and on and on. So the US commitment, the US investment there, I think, is unwavering. But I think across the spectrum of available technologies, it is so exciting to be here in the part of the world where I think it's all going to change.
Yeah, Mr. Light, this is music to our ears, and I believe that's not unrealistic, what you have just mentioned. And we have a hard stop, but I have $1 billion question for Mr. Donnelly here, and that's the overhanging question when we discuss about nuclear. That's the financing of nuclear project in liberalized markets, and what does the future hold for us? I mean, we have the Hinkley Point C example within the EU as a structure, but what's your view on the financing of new nuclear in liberalized markets?
Well, the simple answer is markets normally respond to demand. And if there's a demand for this technology, and we talked about it before, about how we feel like nuclear is an important part of achieving our climate goals, of getting the right mix of energies. So there is demand, and we see it. I mean, we see it in the interest in small modular reactors. We see it in renewed interest in traditional nuclear power plants. And that interest, that demand will then drive the financing, because that's how market economies respond. People say, there's demand for this, I'm going to get in on it, I'll commit my funds, I'll commit to purchasing. And so I don't think, again, this is not something where governments have to finance this. Now, it has been important, as Andrew pointed out, that the research, the demonstration, the helping companies be innovative, that oftentimes requires governments. It doesn't always, but this is what we as modern economies do well. We help our companies, our individuals innovate. And so it's not going to require the government to come up and finance this. If the technology is proven, if, as we believe, nuclear is going to be part of the solution, and as we hope and really believe, the small modular reactor technology is going to be a game changer in that.
Yeah, we're going to overrun, but just half a minute, but I just want to offer a round of applause for everybody who stepped on this stage today and managed to make it happen. Thank you so much. Thank you. So this concludes the energy panel. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your patience.
Adriatic seas. We built a community. We stay connected. We grow relationships and networks. We develop real investment opportunities. Use the 3 Seas Investment Fund to secure capital for your energy, digital, and transport infrastructure project by connecting with engaged investors. BDB 2021 Conference in Sofia, the meeting point for leaders and visionaries mapping out tomorrow's infrastructure.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. Since Churchill made that speech, the world has changed dramatically, especially here between the Baltic, the Adriatic, and also the Black Sea, where a new partnership has descended known as the 3 Seas Initiative. The 3 Seas is made up of diverse EU member states. Their stories are unique, but they all have one chapter in common. For half a century, they were closed off from the rest of Europe by the Iron Curtain. We can still see the effect of that today. While Western European nations are deeply intertwined through energy and transport links, the nations of the 3 Seas remain relatively disconnected from each other. But we are now writing a new chapter together in which millions will benefit from new investments and smarter connectivity. In fact, the 3 Seas region has already become a driving force for economic growth in Europe, outperforming the EU average by 67% over recent years. To turbocharge that growth, the 3 Seas is now combining its political will and economic might to significantly improve its energy, transport, and digital infrastructure. Their focus is on smart connectivity to create new opportunities for future innovations. That includes improving data exchange to make more efficient use of information. By taking decisive action now, the 3 Cs will continue to drive economic growth in Europe and strengthen both our competitiveness and our relationships across the world in this chapter and beyond.
For every beginning, there is a place to live, a place to grow, a place to move to, and a place to move you. Today, you're taking the first step to that place. A place which connects you to the Middle East and Russia without ever leaving the European Union. A place of great connections where the internet is amongst the 10 fastest in the world. Everything moves fast in this place. A booming economy with low operating costs and a corporate tax of just 10%. A smart place with smart people. People who top the global charts in mathematics and rank 3rd in the world in IT specialists per capita. People who communicate with the world. 1 in 2 speaks at least 1 foreign language. This place is a vibrant global software development hub, an industry growing by 30% year on year. The automotive sector is also driving in the fast lane, helping 90% of the European cars move. And there's more. More electrical manufacturing, more mechatronics, more mechanical engineering, electronics, innovations. More is moving forward in this place. Until it pauses. Just for a moment. And then you dive into 14 centuries of cultural heritage. You are dazzled by the stunning natural beauty and never get tired of its diversity throughout its 4 seasons. You fall in love with this place of abundance, where half of the land is arable, fertile, clean, and rich in mineral water. So move forward and be moved by Bulgaria. Take the first step and let us welcome you with strong institutional support and attractive business incentives. Invest in Bulgaria. Move to be moved.
The 3 Cs initiative connects countries from the Baltic, Black, and Adriatic Seas. We built a community. We stay connected. We grow relationships and networks. We develop real investment opportunities. Use the 3 Cs Investment Fund to secure capital for your energy, digital, and transport infrastructure project by connecting with engaged investors. BDB 2021 Conference in Sofia, the meeting point for leaders and visionaries mapping out tomorrow's infrastructure.
From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. Since Churchill made that speech, the world has changed dramatically, especially here between the Baltic, the Adriatic, and also the Black Sea, where a new partnership has descended known as the 3 Cs Initiative. The 3 Cs is made up of diverse EU member states. Their stories are unique, but they all have one chapter in common. For half a century, they were closed off from the rest of Europe by the Iron Curtain. We can still see the effect of that today.